All right. Good evening. Happy Wednesday. Hope everybody's having a good, fantastic week. We're midweek right now, and this is a huge fight week. Look, I'll keep it real. It's been a really busy week for your boy, but being that this is Teofimo Lopez versus Shakur Stevenson fight week, there was no way I wasn't going to jump on a live and discuss some of this with you guys. And there's so many other fights right now. Like the fifth best fight this weekend, whatever you think the fifth best is, would in itself make for a good headline on your typical fight weekend. So yeah, this is a pretty exciting week. And we've got some other news, not even related to this weekend's fights, to discuss a little bit. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of, talk about a lot of the fights this weekend, undercard fights that are on the internet and on the top ranked website, like Xander Zayas versus Abbas Barao. Also the kind of under the radar Bakr Murtazaliyev versus Josh Kelly for Murtazaliyev's 154 IBF title. Like, check it out. 3 of the 4 154-pound titles are being fought for this weekend. So we're going to get into that, but we're also going to talk a little bit about the this weekend specific boxing news. Why don't we get right into it? Tyson Fury is officially coming back against Arslanbek Makhmudov. This feels like a very fitting opponent to come back to. First of all, I'm glad that he's back. Well, it's a little bit more complicated than that. I wish he had the I wish he could keep that promise to himself when he steps away from the game. He says he loves it. He wants to do it. Look, he's a grown man. He knows what he wants to do. I just hope that he's okay. You know what I mean? And I hope that he remains okay. I know that he's financially, or he appears to be very good financially. I see him. I see, Manny Pacquiao, and they return for different reasons. And you can only hope for the best with these guys. But from a fight fan standpoint, of course I'm excited that Tyson Fury is returning to the game. Ventru, what's going on? Thank you for coming through. Arslanbek Makhmudov is on paper a pretty good fighter. He had a lot of hype before he got stopped in back-to-back fights. First by Ajit Kabayel and then by Guido Vianello. Kind of got his butt whooped in both. He's always a scary puncher, but he's so robotic, and I don't know what's up with his neck twitch. That just seems to be a tick that he has. I don't know if it's anything similar to what I think Tevin Farmer said that he has Tourette's. That's why he kind of does that look up thing. But you notice it's almost like you're playing a video game and you're fighting Arslanbek Makhmudov, this 6'7" beast, and you just start hitting him with both hands. And every time he gets hit with a combo, he kind of does like a twitch. It just feels like very video game-ish. Las Vegas Leon is in the house. Thank you for coming. Yeah, heck yeah. It's been a minute. I hope everything's been well. Absolutely. What do y'all think about Makhmudov as Tyson Fury's comeback opponent? I feel like matchup wise, it serves Fury very well. It's not going to prepare him for Usyk, obviously, if they were to ever fight a third time. But in terms of a style that Tyson Fury can more or less have his way with, I think Otto Wallin was more agile than Makhmudov. Makhmudov is very just here, He did show that he has a pretty good jab and some boxing skills. He's got a very good amateur background. That's why when you see him get outclassed, it's like, damn, what happened to all that hype and all of that amateur experience? But when he beat David Allen, because that's the reason he's fighting Fury, is because he's coming off of a win against a popular British fighter in David Allen. David Allen, they kind of set the stage after David Allen beat Johnny Fisher. Spencer Fisher was a lower weight class UFC guy back in the early 2000s or mid 2000s, but he beat Johnny Fisher, who had a lot of hype, right? And that kind of made David Allen like a folk hero for a moment. And then David Allen's about to fight Makhmudov. That's supposed to boost David Allen even more. And then Makhmudov beats him, not via stoppage, but by decision. So it's like, okay, now we got to do something with Makhmudov. Well, he's kind of the perfect comeback opponent for Tyson Fury, who, if he's still even an approximation of prime-ish Fury, which I don't have too many reasons to think that he's not somewhere in the ballpark of at least a very good version of Tyson Fury. It's not like he's been getting knocked out or just smoked or just dominated on the scorecards. This guy lost 2 close fights against Usyk. Granted, the first I thought was much closer than the second, but he fought 2 competitive fights with the best heavyweight in the world, right? By far, for a while now. Usyk. And I say for a while now because I'm just kind of assuming that even if it was a year or 2 prior, Usyk would have probably still beaten Fury. That's just my assumption. But if Fury is even 70% of what he's been, or even 80% of what he last was when we saw him in the Usyk rematch, he should be able to easily, at the very least, outbox Makhmudov. And if he gets rolling, he being Fury, should stop Makhmudov. Like, Tyson Fury, coming up, he didn't have the reputation of being a guy who was just hell-bent on getting you out of there. I'm just thinking, if he just keeps on popping that jab out, given his at least even height to Makhmudov, maybe even a little bit taller, we don't see Makhmudov fight guys bigger than him. We see these smaller, craftier guys get the better of Makhmudov, even though, Vianello's like 6'4", 6'5". He's pretty tall himself. But to see somebody who's kind of punching at least straight, if not a little bit down towards Makhmudov, I just don't see him and his lack of head movement getting out of the way of Tyson Fury's punches whenever Fury wants to throw. So again, if Fury is dialed in and he's a pretty good version of himself, he should be able to run away on the scorecard against Makhmudov. So this is a pretty well-selected opponent. Again, it's not going to get him prepared for Usyk or an Ajit Kabayel, or any of the more agile, athletic, crafty boxers. But it is a guy to come back to and hopefully pick up a win that looks pretty decent on paper. It's a name, Yeah, Las Vegas Leon, you're right. Vegas is getting fights again. And, I think that we're going to, depending on the economy, who the hell knows, and depending on the boxing economy with Turkey Al Sheikh, TKO boxing, Zuffa boxing, and what might happen in the next 12 to 24 months, boxing politics wise. Is Golden Boy going to find a home? Is Top Rank going to find a home? Is PBC going to get their stuff together on Prime or wherever? I hope Vegas is once again the major, let's keep it real, the major hotbed of the most elite out of elite boxing, right? Because that's what it was in the 90s, early 2000s. It was only over the past decade that some of that sizzle wore down a little bit. And Vegas as a city is kind of struggling a little bit as well, economically. But yeah, I would love to see more major fights in Vegas, the way that it has been, even back when it was like Caesar's Palace running the show. But yeah, this is a huge fight weekend. We're going to get into all that. So first, let me know your thoughts on Makhmudov being Fury's comeback opponent, but also, did you read the news that Gervonta Davis was finally arrested for those false imprisonment, attempted kidnapping charges? So just something to kind of keep an eye on, because depending on how that shakes out, it could be a long time before we see Tank in the ring again. And again, given his recent declared lack of appetite for boxing as it stood, I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see him again, unless he needs the money, which I hope doesn't become the case for him. Court cases are expensive, by the way. Yeah, what's up, Benji? Benjamin Tucker, my cousin, in the house. Sad news for Tank. Expected, right? We were just waiting for that shoe to drop. It seemed like, at least reportedly, they had trouble locating him for a minute. So we'll see that whole thing play out. Is Tank a Hall of Famer? Damn, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. That's actually a really tough one. He's had 2 legitimate belts. The second legitimate belt, he only got elevated after being a regular for like a long time at lightweight. They say he had a belt at 140. I'm not even counting that lesser regular belt that he won off of Mario Barrio. So 130, 135, that's just the hardware, right? The belts. The names that he beat: Ryan Garcia, Prime Pedraza. You could say that he had trouble making weight around that time, whatever. Frank Martin a good name to beat. Post-prime Leo Santa Cruz, Pitbull Cruz. That's a good win. He's got good wins. Mario Barrios, good win. He's Raleigh Romero, good win. He's got a lot of good wins. But being that he just never got in there with the fighters that mattered the most, personally, no. He's a Hall of Famer if we are going to make the commercial impact that they have on the game, being that Tank was a boxing celebrity, and he's a celebrity in black culture in general. Like, people who don't watch boxing, people who might be more into DJ Academics or, Vlad TV, Whack 100, whatever, like, people who are just not even like boxing fans know about Tank Davis. And in recent years, that hasn't been the case with a lot of fighters. Like, people like my community, like, we didn't know, I knew, but a lot of people didn't know about Terrence Crawford until like he fought Errol Spence, and they barely knew about Errol Spence. It's not like he was just a insane level celebrity. He wasn't. Tank was a bigger celeb really than both. I know Terrence Crawford's shining and gets all of the rightful accolades now. But if you're going to base Hall of Fame on fame, if the key word is fame, then yes. But if we're looking strictly at resume, I don't think Tank is a Hall of Famer. Even if, like, the times that I see him in the ring, like, if you were to ask me, who would I wish I could see fight 3 times a year? Like, ask yourself this question. If you could see any fighter fight 3 times a year against the guys that you want to see him fight against the most, any division, pick a division, who would that fighter be? I can't really think of a name that I would rather see, unless you really want to just like you see Canelo and David Benavidez finally. But Canelo was fighting two times a year throughout. Tank was often a 1 fight a year guy. Sometimes it was 2. But it's been so frustrating watching his fight-by-fight scheduling. Yeah, a lot of the wins are aging well. They do age well. But when was the last time, besides Ryan Garcia, that they announced a Tank fight and you were truly excited? Like, hell yeah, let's go. That's what I'm talking about. I can't think of the last time. I'm always like, all right, man. All right, but when are we going to stop BSing and really get into it? Like, that's how I usually feel when a Tank fight is scheduled. The Frank Martin one, that one was pretty cool. That one was cool. But again, the Ryan Garcia, that's really significant. But again, Ryan Garcia is a talented, famous guy, a really famous guy whose resume, his best win might be against Oscar Duarte and then Luke Campbell, one of the two. Tank Davis would be the fighter that I would want to see fight 3 times a year. Probably the most, like, out of everybody. He's exciting, and when he gets in the ring, he performs his butt off. I know he struggled with Lamont Roach, but I mean, who does that to Leo Santa Cruz? I don't care if he was only in that division for a couple of fights, and that's not, who does that to Leo Santa Cruz? Like, my God, like, I'll never forget that moment. He stopped Barrios. He jumped up in weight and stopped big old Barrios, Keith Thurman didn't do that. Manny Pacquiao, I know Pacquiao was like 46. But Tank, from a performance standpoint, is incredible, which is why it's been so frustrating. So no, I would say not a Hall of Famer. I've been thinking about doing a segment where you talk about like a Mikey Garcia, bring up a fighter, Josh Taylor, Mikey Garcia, take your pick. And then you kind of go through the resume, and then like they're either a Hall of Famer or they're not. And then I was just thinking about the Mario Dungeon theme. If he's not a Hall of Famer, where I like think about it, and then I like pan, then the camera pans in, then it's like, not a Hall of Famer, not a Hall of Famer, not a Hall of Famer, not a Hall of Famer. I think I have like just, random boxing related thoughts, but yeah, I don't think Tank is a Hall of Famer. Which sounds crazy because he was one of the biggest names in boxing, like a top 3-4 name in boxing for like a few years. NMTK is in the house. Thank you for coming through. You're starting to change your mind on Teofimo to win. We'll talk about that. Rob 6387. Thank you for coming through. He said that's hilarious. Not a Hall of Famer. Yeah. I should actually try to do that. Yeah, Ventru, thank you. It would be cool. It would be a cool series for you to do profiles on certain fighters and talk about the career highlights and also your thoughts. Yeah, certainly. Heck yeah. So Tyson Fury scheduled to fight Makhmudov. Gervonta Davis arrested. Richardson Hitchens versus Oscar Duarte is going to be the co-main of Barrios versus Ryan Garcia. And they rescheduled Gary Antoine Russell versus Andy Hiraoka, which I'm super happy about because they were supposed to fight on the Jake Paul versus Tank Davis undercard. That fight fell apart. It wasn't rescheduled and put under Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua. They probably didn't want to like mess up the camps, and I don't know why they didn't reschedule it for that, but they didn't. So I was wondering, they are gonna make that fight, right? They are gonna remake that fight. Please do. And they did. So it's gonna be on the Mario Barrios versus Ryan Garcia undercard. And that's a interesting fight. Hiraoka's got a Terrence Crawford level reach. Good boxer puncher, could fight on his front foot, back foot. Good fighter. Stop Ishmael Barroso. He stopped him. He beat Jin Sasaki. So he's an undefeated fighter, title challenger to Gary Antoine Russell, who's got only that one loss against Alberto Puello. Can't wait for that fight. And that's like the third fight down on the Barrios versus Garcia card. Yeah, you're right. That whole card is fire. It also has Frank Martin against Nahir Albright. Nahir Albright's the guy who beat Keyshawn's brother, and then Keyshawn assaulted him backstage. That's Nahir Albright. Nahir Albright also gave Keyshawn arguably his toughest fight as a pro so far. Keyshawn didn't exactly have his way with Nahir Albright in there, and that was the fight that was turned into a no contest because it was in Texas and Keyshawn tested positive for weed. So yeah, those are the fights that were just made. Hitchens versus Duarte, which Hitchens should outbox Duarte, but I mean, he's going to have to do better at controlling range than he did against Gustavo Lemos. I'll put it like that. Because if a war breaks out between the two, Hitchens might still win. Hitchens has some dog in him. Sometimes I feel like when there's a boxer, people think sweet, and like, you know, and that boxer can also you up, right? And get nasty in there as well. I think Hitchens has some of that, you know, in him. Whether he's got enough to fight that type of a fight with Duarte, no, I don't think that would be a prudent decision. So we'll see what he can do with Duarte's style, and we can see what Duarte could do to close that range, close that distance. Let's get right into like we haven't been on this for a bit, for 17 minutes, but let's discuss Teofimo Lopez versus Shakur Stevenson fight weekend. There are a ton of good fights. I've already issued like 4 previews. I'm still trying to get to like Carlos Adames versus Ammo Williams, another good fight. Bruce Shushu Carrington fighting for the vacant, I think it might be the vacant WBC 126-pound title against Carlos Castro. Yeah, that's another good one. So it's Teofimo versus Shakur, Keyshawn versus Jermaine Ortiz, Shushu Carrington against Carlos Castro, Carlos Adames versus Austin Ammo Williams, Big Baby Miller's also on that card, even further down. And then you've got a totally different fight card with Bakram Murtazaliev, who hasn't fought since stopping Tim Tszyu when he demolished Tim Tszyu in 3 rounds. Hasn't fought since. Is going to be fighting Josh Kelly. I just issued a preview on that one. That's one of the 3 IBF titles that's going to be fought for this weekend. So you've got Bakram Murtazaliev versus the kind of slick Josh Kelly in Josh Kelly's hometown of Newcastle, which is right next to his actual home city of Sunderland. So this is going to be a very pro Josh Kelly crowd. Check out my preview, but I'm just going to say this. I look at those betting odds. Bakram Murtazaliev is at least like a 3-1 favorite. Keep your eye on that one, because I sense Josh Kelly has a real chance at winning that one. Again, I issued a full preview and prediction, but I'll say this. Josh Kelly is fighting in his backyard. He's more active than Bakram Murtazaliev. He's a couple years younger than Murtazaliev. He's a fast starter. He's going to be the slick, sharper operator, so it's going to be up to Bakram, Bakram might catch him early and hurt him and beat him. Josh Kelly did lose to Avanesian, and he lost in a way that had a lot of people thinking that he didn't have heart, because Avanesian roughed him up like he roughs a lot of people up. He's a shorter fighter, explodes high. Josh Kelly suffered a head clash, I think, cut himself. And he just seemed like he didn't want to be in there at a certain point. So it was like, I think, a TKO win for Avanesian. That really soured a lot of people on Josh Kelly. But I think that he's learned a lot since then. He's had a few fights since then. And again, he's the sharper fighter between he and Murtazaliev. So if he gets off to a hot start and the crowd is on his back, his hometown crowd, like, I think he can outbox Bakram early. And if he could bag enough rounds early and still be competitive in the second half of the fight and not get overwhelmed by the downpour of pressure, he could become your new IBF 154-pound title holder. The other two 154-pound belts that are going to be fought for are Xander Zayas' WBO title and Abbas Barrow's newly, earned WBA 154-pound title. Zayas just won his against Jorge Garcia Perez, and Abbas Barrow upset Ioannis Tellez, the Cuban fighter who is like a substantial favorite. You listen to the broadcast, they're all pro Tellez. Like, it's almost a foregone conclusion that he's going to beat Barrow. Barrow had other plans, and he's the WBA 154-pound champ. It's just crazy, though. I'm just going to say this, that two of the 154-pound titles are going to be fought for this weekend, in this particular fight between Zayas and Barrow, in a division that also has non-champion Boots Ennis, non-champion Virgil Ortiz, one belt holder Sebastian Fundora, Tim Tszyu, and Boots and not Boots, but Jermell Charlo if he ever comes back, and some other good 154-pound fighters. But it's just crazy that Xander Zayas, whose best win is against, again, Jorge Garcia Perez and Abbas Barrow, are both holding titles in this loaded division. That's a little bit wild. But yeah, that's going to be an interesting fight. I wonder if Zayas can handle that kind of patient, persistent, intelligent pressure that Barrow brings to the table. Like, Tellez was boxing well and looking sharp until he wasn't. You know what I mean? And it got pretty. He looked like he was in some dire straits. I think Zayas has better movement, than Tellez, but they do have some similarity in their styles. I think Zayas is sharper as well, but Tellez was a good prospect contender. That's why he was the favorite to beat Barrow. So yeah, there's Xander Zayas against Abbas Barrow. They're going to be fighting on Top Rank's website. Like, you can watch it on, I think, like Pluto, Tubi. You can watch it on Tubi, Top Rank on Tubi. You can watch it on, what's the other one? It's not Freevee. It might be Roku. So kind of these like second tier streamers, and you can watch it on the Top Rank website. I think it's like toprank.com/toprankclassics or something like that. It's a little bit of a mess. I hope that they find a home. But, and it's just crazy that a 154 unification fight for Top Rank is only going to be available on those kind of those side streaming platforms and on the website. It tells you a little bit about the state of boxing. Yeah, I don't know why not just YouTube. They did some other fight. Let me know if you remember which one they recently did that was on YouTube. But it was another Top Rank card where they just put it on their YouTube channel. Yeah, Benji, you're right. Madrimov at 154 too, another non-champion who, like, if Madrimov were to fight Xander Zayas, who would you favor? I mean, maybe you would favor Zayas, but if so, not by much. But Zayas is a very, very, very good and quick technical boxer. Let's see. Las Vegas Leon said, I'm probably betting a lot of the overs this weekend. I've been thinking about your preview. I see a lot of money coming in on Kelly. Really? Damn, because I was going to bet on Kelly. I should have bet on Kelly like 3 days ago. Oh, man. I still am going to. I hope the odds aren't too close, but wow. Damn. Feels like a missed opportunity. But yeah, don't sleep on Josh Kelly's chances. Let's see. So we talked a little Xander Zayas, Abbas Barrow, talked a little Bakram, Josh Kelly, but let's get into the Teofimo Shakur card. But I want to start with Adames versus Austin Amma Williams for a moment. Just because, I haven't done a preview on this one. I'll just give you some quick thoughts on this one. I've never been a huge fan of Austin Ammo Williams' style. He's got some ability. You could tell he's a decent puncher, pretty good puncher. I mean, he's got ammo. He does. But there's no deception to his game. I don't see like clever timing, placement of punches, strategy. Like, you thought I was going to do this and then I did this. Like, I don't see a lot of that in Austin Ammo Williams. Like, if you've watched like the first 2 rounds in a fight that he's doing well in, if you've seen the first 2 rounds, you've seen what he's got. He's just going to do more of that, you know? He fought competitively, but ultimately got stopped. His one loss against Hamza Shiraz. That, by the way, is a common opponent between Ammo Williams and Carlos Adames. Adames fought the draw that most people thought he, being Adames, deserved a win. So Adames definitely did better with that common opponent, which doesn't always tell you the story of what's going to happen between those fighters. But Carlos Adames, to me, is just a better boxer than Ammo Williams. He's just as durable, probably more durable. He's fought better guys. Like, how would Ammo do against Derevianchenko? I don't know. Like, maybe he'd do well, but I know what Carlos Adames did, you know, versus Derevianchenko. Not to say it wasn't a competitive fight, but Adames has beaten Terrell Goucher, who I'm not sure Ammo could beat. Adames has beaten who else? He's got a couple of good wins and that draw with Shiraz, you know. But my problem with Adames is that he just doesn't fight enough. He fought like once in 2025, once in 2024, once in 2023, once in 2022, once in 2021. It's like, so is the life of a PBC fighter in this part of the era, unfortunately. I just wish that he fought more. It's like, you could tell he's a guy, he wanted to fight Jermall Charlo for like a long time. He wants the fights that matter. He probably wanted to fight Janibek. He probably wants to fight Arislani Lara. He's just a guy who's just kind of doing the Gary Russell Jr., not Antoine Russell, but Gary Russell Jr., where you fight once a year, defend your title, keep it moving, you know? So this is cool that he's fighting a name in Ammo Williams. I think that we're going to see Adames win probably via decision. That's if I'm giving you what I'm thinking right now. Again, I haven't done an official preview. Might not, depends. I would say Adames via decision. He might drop Ammo Williams. I think he's going to be the better jabber between the two. He's going to have the better timing. I think he's got the better defense than Williams. Again, Ammo Williams is kind of one note to me. Like, he's got your, like if you were to shadow box or something and you were just to do like jab, 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 right hand, 1-2, 1-2. Like, how many 1-2s can you get, or 1-2 hook? He's got like the basic combinations, and he doesn't like, you don't see him throw like so much like twice with the same hand, or throw one, wait a beat, and then throw again, where you kind of have the person off timing wise. Like, I just don't see enough wrinkles in his game, and I don't see his game even really evolving much. Let me know if you think he's actually gotten better in the last few fights. But, you know, even his last few fights haven't been against very good competition. So, I mean, he's beating some of these guys since he lost to Hamza Shiraz. He's beating them all besides Shiraz. But I've never been blown away by Ammo is what I'm getting at. And Carlos Adames, I've seen as being underrated for some time. So unless Adames took his foot off the gas preparation wise, I think that I feel more confident about him beating Ammo than just about any other fight on this card, at least any other fight in the top 4. Shushu Carrington versus Carlos Castro. I feel like that's one of those where just when you think Shushu should have it in the bag, because Carlos Castro can be seen as a guy who comes to, bring it, pack a lunch. He's going to give you a run for your money, but falls short when he's in the biggest moments. He got stopped by Brandon Figueroa, who's going to be fighting Nick Ball in a couple weeks. That's going to be one to watch. I'm assuming Brandon Figueroa is still near prime. I kind of thought Joet Gonzalez beat Figueroa, to be honest. But, Carlos Castro got stopped by Figueroa, lost a close decision against Stephen Fulton, who knows what his boxing future looks like after that whole debacle of a weekend against Oshaki Foster. But Carlos Castro dropped Stephen Fulton, and he won multiple other rounds against Stephen Fulton. Fulton rallied back, but he had to dig deep to beat Carlos Castro. That was a good fight for Castro. Even in a loss, it's like, damn, you were that competitive with Stephen Fulton? That fight had, because that was Stephen Fulton's comeback fight, so there is that. It was Fulton's comeback fight after he got demolished by Monster, in a way. So when Fulton returned and then had that performance against Carlos Castro, a lot of people are like, damn, maybe Stephen Fulton is nearly done. Maybe he just isn't what he was, you know? And then he showed out in his next fight against Brandon Figueroa in their rematch. So Shushu Carrington, you know, we'll see if he's like the real deal. This is that step up fight for Shushu where it's like, okay, you're looking good on these undercards with other top ranked prospects like prospect contenders like Troy Isley, Tiger Johnson, and, you know, just Abdullah Mason. Now Abdullah Mason's a belt holder or champ. You know, you've been looking good on these undercard, you know, in these undercard opportunities. But what happens when you fight a guy who is nearly elite, if not elite? He's in that upper tier. You know what I mean? You've got to get through him if you're going to be the man in the division. And Shushu's been calling out some champs at 126. Well, if he beats Castro, he will have earned the vacant WBC title that Stephen Fulton just relinquished. So big opportunity for Shushu. If he stops Carlos Castro, then damn, then the sky's the limit. I mean, as much as the limit can be at 126, a division that hardly ever unifies titles. But like, wouldn't you want to see if Shushu shines? If Shushu shines. By the way, in my head, when I think of Shushu Carrington, I think of like a drum beat, like Shushu Carrington, Shushu Carrington, Shushu Carrington, Shushu Carrington. It's just something about like the rhythm of saying Shushu Carrington. But if he shines, if Shushu shines against Carlos Castro, wouldn't you want to see him fight Espinosa or especially Espinosa, but Nick Ball? I would want to see Shushu fight any of these guys at 126. Even Angelo Leo, which Shushu, you would think, if he is supposed to be that guy, should beat Angelo Leo. I'm less sure about Espinosa and Nick Ball, just style-wise. Let's see. Let me get to some of what you're saying. All that to say, by the way, Shushu should beat Castro. Should. I wouldn't be surprised if he has a lot of difficulty on the way and wins a close, rugged decision. I wouldn't be totally surprised if he stops him mid-rounds. If he gets in there and you could just see he's just quicker to the punch. He's just not only beating him to the punch and beating him in the early rounds, sharper, able to counter effectively. You know, Castro comes in, gets hit with an uppercut. He's getting hit with clean shots. And he's getting kind of like, you could tell that it's not just shots that he's going to eat like Tic Tacs and just walk through and keep on pressuring Shushu. If Shushu's able to hit him cleanly and affect him, I wouldn't be totally surprised if Shushu gets him out of there in the middle rounds. But this is also a 12-rounder, which Shushu hasn't fought a lot of, you know, as it stands. Neither of these guys really have a lot of 12-round experience, or at least going the full 12. Let's see. Las Vegas Leon said, Castro best win I saw ringside against Escandón. Yeah, that's legit. He's in danger this weekend. I remember the Neri fight too. Yeah, you know, Shushu, you know, he's younger, less wear and tear. He's fresh. He's in his physical prime. We'll see if he keeps on developing and gets into his actual well-roundedness prime, but he's in his physical prime. This might be that step-up fight where he just exceeds expectations, ends up smoking this otherwise reputable name. We see that sometimes. We just saw it with Floyd Schofield and Tevin Farmer. I look at Farmer as being better than Castro, by the way. But yeah, this could be that for Shushu Carrington. And then Keyshawn Davis versus Jermaine Ortiz. I mean, that betting line, I was surprised to see. I knew Keyshawn was a favorite. I didn't think that he was going to be that significant a favorite. Jermaine Ortiz has a real shot. Like, unless Jermaine Ortiz isn't the same guy who fought, look, I know that the Teofimo Lopez performance was a head scratcher based on the unexpected game plan of moving around the perimeter of the ring. But if Jermaine Ortiz is still as good as he was when he beat the brakes off, well, pretty convincingly beat Jamel Herring and then had that 50-50 fight, some say more than 50-50 on the side of Jermaine Ortiz against Lomachenko. If that's still Jermaine Ortiz, Keyshawn Davis really might have his hands full. If Keyshawn Davis goes in there and smokes Jermaine Ortiz, at least the whole boxing community who knows something about boxing will be like, damn, because we know what Jermaine Ortiz can do, you know? So it would be interesting to see Ortiz have those very competitive performances, if not even more than that, against Loma and Teofimo Lopez, and then go in there against Keyshawn and get smoked. That would be something. I don't expect that to happen. I think that Keyshawn is going to have to figure out the hand speed, really. And also they said it on the broadcast when I think it was during the Lomachenko fight, that Loma has to respect the herky-jerkiness of Jermaine Ortiz when he's fighting in that style where he's rocking back and forth. They actually said, I forgot which, it might have been Andre Ward, that Jermaine Ortiz's rocking style reminded him, it might have been Bradley too, reminded him of Jermaine Taylor. Remember him, the middleweight who beat Bernard Hopkins twice and has had a problematic life outside the ring post-career, which is very concerning. Haven't checked up on his name in a while. I hope he's okay. But Jermaine Taylor, very physical, gifted, a pretty athletic fighter, puncher, but he would do this rocking, herky-jerky thing where he's just kind of going back and forth. And like his hands were so quick that even if you thought that he was like BSing and bluffing with 90% of these, you had to take it seriously because he had punching power and he was very sudden. Jermaine Ortiz is one of these guys who's just like, bop, 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 bop. Like he's just quick and he'll throw like 3 to 5 to 6, 7 sometimes. Not to say that he's going to, well, we'll see if that translates because it translated against Lomachenko. He was moving around the ring, but when he would move and move and move and then sit down and fire, he would often, especially throughout the first half of the fight, get the better of Teofimo Lopez. So we'll see if he's as against somebody like Keyshawn Davis, who's got timing, who's got a slight reach advantage, at least on paper, 1 inch, slight height advantage, at least on paper, 1 inch. We'll see if Jermaine Ortiz can do some of those athletic, quick, sudden things to disrupt Keyshawn Davis's game. We'll see. But again, if Keyshawn Davis is able to pass that test and use his angles, go to the body, and convincingly beat, like even if he just beats it, even if he beats Ortiz slightly more convincingly than Loma or Teo did, that would be a huge feather in the cap. Now, again, if he stops Jermaine Ortiz, that's a whole other story. Let's see what you're saying. 80F Velasquez, thanks for breaking down the Carlos versus Austin fight. Nobody even talking about that. Yeah, they're not talking about it because it's such a stacked weekend. You know what I'm saying? Like, I still don't know how or when I'm going to see Xander Zayas. I guess, am I just going to have my phone here? Like, am I going to be watching the TO card, the Shakur card here, you know, here meaning like the other room downstairs and stuff, but have my phone and be watching Zayas versus Barao at the corner of my eye? I don't really want to do that. I want to be able to sit down and watch because I look at that as being a potentially very competitive fight. I want to be able to just take it in like where I'm focusing on that fight and not just as a side note. I don't look at this as like and by the way, this is on too. I look at it as being like, if that was the biggest fight going on this weekend, I'd be like, damn, we're going to see a real step up fight. And it's a title unification for Xander Zayas. It just happens to be like, what, the 3rd, 4th, 5th most interesting fight this weekend? Let's see. Hey, GWCon YouTube, what's going on? And let me know if I'm saying GW, there's probably a pronunciation that I'm not getting. He said, I'm rooting for Jermaine. Even though I like both guys the same, was upset to see him not get that Teo decision and was great against Loma. Yeah, he was great against Loma. And yeah, he was disrupting Teo. Teo, I feel I've seen Teo in at least three fights where I'm not convinced that he truly passed the test. Like even in he got the decision, but did you pass the test? Do you have me convinced that you figured that out? Now, again, he finished strong against Jermaine Ortiz, but if you rewatch that fight, there was a head clash that cut Jermaine Ortiz. I think it was like towards the end of a round, maybe 5 or 6. It might have been 5. But that to me was like a big turning point. All of a sudden, Jermaine Ortiz wasn't nearly as elusive. Maybe he was also just getting tired and gassing too, because he was making Teo chase him, but he was moving and moving and moving. He was moving like Jake Paul was moving against Anthony Joshua. You know what I'm saying? Like that tires somebody out. But he was winning those exchanges throughout the first half of the fight. And then the head clash happened, and all of a sudden, he's not as sharp in those exchanges. All of a sudden, he's not like able to duck and slip, and because he was making Teo miss. Even when Teo would catch up, all pissed off because he had to hunt him down and use his feet, he would finally catch up with Jermaine Ortiz. Jermaine Ortiz would go, bah, and Teo would like throw a couple punches back. Jermaine Ortiz would slip out and then start moving again. Like he did that for a while, which again, maybe he was just getting tired in the second half of the fight. It just seemed, watching the fight once and then rewatching the fight, that cut was a significant factor in the tide turning in that fight. Let's see. But, Sandor Martin, Jermaine Ortiz, obviously George Kambosos, who finished strong in that win against Teo, and to a lesser degree, Nakatani. Not Junto, but Masayoshi Nakatani. That was the first guy that I really saw give Teo that work and some real problems for different reasons in the first half of the fight. But Teo in the second half of the fight was winning most of those rounds too. Finished strong. But yeah, Keyshawn, Jermaine Ortiz, those betting odds. If you think that Jermaine Ortiz has a real shot, I'm just thinking it's rare to me that you see a guy almost get to the top, lose. Almost get to the top, lose. Just doesn't get the fair shake in your view, in my view, decision-wise, to see him get over the hump against the next top-notch hot shot. In this case, it's Keyshawn Davis. Usually, it goes the other way. The guy almost gets there, and then he almost gets there, and then he starts losing more convincingly, and then it's like, okay, maybe he's not what he was then, and usually that's what happens. We'll see. We'll see. But if you think that Jermaine Ortiz has a real shot, look at those betting odds because he's a significant underdog. Yeah, let's talk Teofimo Lopez versus Shakur Stevenson. Yeah. NMTK says Teofimo Lopez is going to take him at him in the beginning of the fight and take rounds. Let me know what you meant. Is he going to take it to him? Is he going to come at him? Is he going to take a step back and make Shakur come to him? So he's not the one trying to find Shakur. Not that Shakur is running. I think that it's going to be interesting to see what the movement looks like. I tend to believe that they're going to be right in front of each other. I mean, at angles, obviously, but it's going to be a chess match. The proverbial chess match, as they say. Yeah, thanks, NMTK. Take it to him. So you think he's going to just come at Shakur, give him volume? Because here's the thing. Shakur defensively isn't Josh Taylor. Like, Teo does have tricks. He does have tricks. And that's one of the things that makes him special. He'll do the heel tap and punch. He'll do a Superman punch. He'll throw a right hand and then throw the right hand again right on top of it, like go, bah, and then follow with the second one. He does a lot of things that are just unorthodox. And it disrupts people. It catches people. Barbosa was just a step behind, a step too slow. Every time you think Teo is going to be met, or hit his ceiling, those are the moments that it seems like he shines the most. And this is definitely one of those moments. Shakur, you look at the betting odds, I'm like, damn. So they're really giving Shakur this much love in his 140-pound debut against Teofimo Lopez. That tells you how much the public, the boxing public, the betting public believes in Shakur Stevenson's skills and how much they are valuing Teofimo's perceived inconsistency, maybe even slight instability. I feel like that's all playing into the betting odds here. But yes, Stevenson is not a fast starter. I'll tell you who he was a fast starter against, though. Jamel Herring. If you want to see Shakur, and I know you know what I'm talking about. If you want to see Shakur with a fast start, man, I heard one of the funniest bits of commentary watching Shakur versus Jamel Herring. It was Bradley, Andre Ward, Tessitore. But Shakur came in, just like hitting him. He could not miss, right? Early, just messing him up early in the fight. People thought that because this was a step-up fight for Shakur, maybe Jamel Herring could give him some like difficulty and maybe give him some issues. I mean, Jamel Herring did kind of fight his way back into the fight, ended up getting stopped. But look at the first couple rounds of Shakur versus Herring. He was beating Herring up so bad and just hitting him with he was landing like 80% of his punches. It looked almost like Floyd Mayweather versus Arturo Gatti. And Jamel Herring just getting stuck with everything and just can't get his guns out of the holster, right? And so Jamel Herring finally comes with a jab, but this is what his jab looked like. He went like that. That was the jab. And Andre Ward, who's usually more diplomatic, less excitable than Timothy Bradley, Andre Ward's like, You see what happened there? You see what happened there? Jamel Herring just threw a jab and tried to keep the hand at home at the same time. It's not a good look, fellas, is what Andre Ward said. And then Bradley just laughed at that commentary. I'm like, yeah, this is not looking good for Jamel. But that's a fast start for the otherwise, relatively slow starter, Shakur Stevenson. He's one of those data downloaders, as they say. So, Teo should and kind of needs to get off to a good start in this case. He can't just fall into the, Teo's down 2-0. Is Teo down 3-0? 4-0? He can't let that start happening, obviously. Because if anything, Teo needs a fast start. And even if he gets a fast start, the assumption is that it's Shakur who has the adaptability edge and is able to figure things out better, to where even if there were aspects of Teo's game that he was struggling with early, he's able to turn that around and win the second half of the fight, kind of start running away on the scorecard. That's usually the flow of a boxer like Shakur Stevenson. So yeah, even if Teo starts fast, it's no guarantee that he's going to win. Here's the wrinkle that I had in my preview / prediction. I actually think that it might unexpectedly, but might go the other way, not in terms of who wins. And I see NMTK, you're saying you think Teo, I'm going to get to those last couple comments too, that Teo's going to win this one. I'm more so talking about the flow, the momentum swing in this one. I kind of think that Shakur is going to outbox Teo earlier, and I actually think that Teo is going to find a way to start evening things out as you get into the middle and even late rounds, where he starts, because Teo doesn't have the reputation of being the greatest adapter, but I think that his adaptability is a little bit underrated. And it's because there were fights that he simply never seemed to fully figure it out, like the Sandor Martin. But I think that he's going to find something that, I don't know if it's going to be that he equals Shakur Stevenson in hand speed, or he starts playing angles, which I know it's tough to picture because Shakur is seen to be the best angle player, or one of the best angle players in the game. I like to use the term round winner. You've got guys who are like feast or famine. Think Deontay Wilder, even in his prime. Sometimes he's either losing the round or he's knocking the guy down, right? You've got your feast or famine guys. You've got your guys who give up some rounds but end up coming in like a storm. Canelo could drop a round or two sometimes. I thought Jaime Munguia had early success against Canelo. You've got guys who will give up the beginning of fights, but you know how they do, and they start coming on strong. Then you've got guys who kind of run the table and are among the very best round winners, where you've got like certain fights where they just completely sweep the opponent. Like, how many rounds would you have given Artem Haratunian against Shakur Stevenson, right? Shakur Stevenson is one of the best round winners in boxing. I look at Devin Haney as being one of the best round winners. He's such a good round winner that he almost beat Ryan Garcia that night while getting hurt in the first, dropped 3 other times. He almost won that fight still. That's how good of a round winner Devin Haney is. But yeah, I think that Teo might actually have success in the second half against Shakur Stevenson. Let me get to some of what you're saying. So I want to kind of back it up just a moment, just to talk a little Jermaine Ortiz. I love you. 281000. Thank you for coming through. You say you give Jermaine a chance, but he needs to have a good game plan going in against Keyshawn. GW Con YouTube said maybe Jermaine doesn't have that it factor in a way. Whatever that is specifically, maybe it's a desire to finish fight strong, kind of like the Sandor Martina Derevianchenko. Yeah, maybe that's it, which is interesting because usually it like, you know, Jermaine Ortiz looks a little bit like Chris Brown to me. Like he kind of has like I mean, he, you know, he looks like if he wasn't boxing, he could potentially like model for like a catalog, a fashion catalog or something like that, right? Like a print model or something. Usually people like that, you know, gain a lot of favor in the game, but for whatever reason, Jermaine Ortiz like hasn't, and at least on the scorecards hasn't. But I don't know I don't know if he's got that it factor. Maybe it's his interviews. He's not a charismatic personality. I don't know what it is. It could be that he doesn't finish fights the strongest necessarily, because that always kind of leaves a bad taste in your mouth when you watch a guy who's he's showing flashes of, if not greatness, damn goodness. And he's showing that in the first half of the fight, but then you see him kind of like, you know, end the fight with a whimper, you know, like it's like, that kind of makes you kind of doubt that fighter. You don't trust them as much. Maybe that there's some of that with Jermaine Ortiz. Like it was kind of on you that fight kind of slipped away. I still think you might have won or fought evenly, but you could have done more towards the end there. Like I could at least see an argument form because you didn't finish the strongest. Maybe there is some of that. Ventru said, I could see Shakur being more patient and see Teo going more towards Shakur. A battle of counterpunching, maybe. That's the thing. Teo is not to me, he's not a good aggressive fighter, depending on who he's fighting. Certain guys, yeah, you could go in there and kind of run him over a little bit. But Teo's at his best when he's using the other person's aggression and he's able to kind of sharpshoot and snipe and then humiliate, you know? Like Josh Taylor was in all kinds of trouble by the end of that one. There might be a lot of staring going on and a lot of that between Shakur and Teofimo. I can see a lot of that going on because they're both counterpunchers. But let me ask you this. In those moments of staring, who is getting the better with the jab? We saw at least reportedly, according to Shakur, a one-handed Shakur slightly win the standoff against Edwin De Los Santos. I don't think anybody feels good about what they saw there, though. Is this going to be an action fight, or is this going to be a chess match that turns into some action, but not enough action to become a thriller? I kind of feel like it might be that. Start slow. If somebody gets hurt early, that would be like, like who would have thought Devin Haney would hurt Brian Norman, drop him in the first couple of rounds? You know what I mean? Like if one guy between these two hurts the other, it's going to have everybody on the edge of their seat, regardless of who hurt who. But if that doesn't happen, I could see a slow first 3 or so rounds, start picking it up in the middle rounds, and then it results in a few tough to call rounds towards the end, maybe, to where it's a good technical match, but not a super fan friendly match. I could see that happening too. NMTK said, I think that power shot ability Teo is going to look to establish on Shakur, just like how Teo went on Lomachenko. Well, yeah, okay. I think that he boxed Lomachenko really well. Me and my cousin Benjamin Tucker, Benji, who's also in this chat, we were talking about that fight right when it happened, and we were praising Teo for like his jabs to the body and stuff like that. Like he boxed really well. Like he was naturally bigger than Loma. He was just as athletic, if not more athletic than Loma, at least in that stage of Loma's career. I know Loma's also a freak athlete, but he was bigger, just as quick, it seemed, just as athletic, if not more, and he had a good game plan going in. And you could, argue the theory is that Loma was somewhat injured in the fight. I don't know how much weight to put on that, but Teo boxed well against Loma. Shakur is a little bit bigger than Loma naturally, not by much. Remember, Shakur was at 126, then 130, then 135, now at 147. People talk about Shakur like he's really in the, like he might be closer to Tank's size overall, but He's not as big as Devin Haney. You know, people were talking about the 4 kings or princes. Like Ryan Garcia and Devin Haney are bigger than Tank and Shakur. You know what I mean? Shakur's not like naturally as big as Devin. Let me know if you disagree. It's not like I've seen them like really side to side or face to face like that. I haven't. I'm just kind of going by what I've seen in the ring and just seeing them like height wise, shoulder wise, standing next to other fighters who you've seen a lot of. Shakur's a smaller dude, 126, 130, 135, now 140. So, but I think that this might be one of those cases where even though Teo is seen as being, hey, this is my division, you're coming to my division, I feel like Shakur is going to hydrate well. And I think that I wouldn't be surprised if Shakur looks as big as Teo, if not a little bit bigger when they get in the ring. And I think that once that revelation hits, then it might become more like, oh, and Shakur not run away with it, but win handedly by outboxing Teofimo Lopez. Because Teo, even though he's the harder puncher, isn't able to physically impose himself in the way that we might think against Shakur Stevenson. Again, I won't be surprised if Shakur looks as big, if not bigger, in the ring than Teo, because we see that a lot. Sometimes we'll even see like the weigh-in, the face-offs, and all this stuff, and we think this guy's bigger than this, or this guy's that much bigger than this, and then we see them in the ring, and it's like, oh, I had that wrong. You know, I think this might be one of those. Yeah, I love you. 128 Teo can be a tricky guy. He is tricky. I think I kicked off saying that Teo's got a lot of tricks. He's got a lot of tricks. The thing is, like, it's also a possibility that he could get outboxed to the point where he does what Zab Judah, and we've seen Teo do in the past, where he starts doing this and stuff. Like sometimes you do it because you're in control. Other times you do it because you're frustrated. I've seen Zab Judah do it against Floyd Mayweather when he started getting beaten on and frustrated. I wouldn't be surprised if Shakur outboxes Teo to where he starts doing some of this stuff to try to throw Shakur off. NMTK said Shakur has to show the judges he wants to really win and take a risk and throw his hands and not get comfortable on the defense. Oh yeah, but you know, when we've seen Shakur get super defensive and it turns into a boring fight, it's a fight that he's usually like winning all the rounds, like against Nakathila, against Toka Khan Clary, against Artem Haratunian. Just think of the fight, except for Edwin De Los Santos. That was a different story. But in those other cases, that's what it is. He's winning the rounds, but he's not stepping on the gas. He knows, I think that he knows the importance of body language. And I think that he knows, I'm just making an assumption based on what I think his boxing IQ is. He understands the optics. So I don't think that he knows that he can't fight nearly even rounds against Teo where Teo is more aggressive. That's how you lose a close fight. I think that he knows that, you know? So I wouldn't be surprised if at a point he's able to not only stand his ground against Teo, but even start taking the step forward where it's Teo who starts circling and moving and looking for angles and looking like he's looking to counterpunch. I wouldn't be surprised if we get there because Shakur outboxes Teo. But I get what you're saying. If Shakur is too negative style, too back foot, which again, I feel like some of that Shakur moves back narrative, I feel like some of that's there's a difference, I think, between doing what Jermaine Ortiz did against Teofimo and just doing the thing where you are standing in front of the guy, when the guy explodes, you take the hop back, but then you step right back in range, and now you're in range to jab them. That's different than what Jermaine Ortiz is doing. I think Shakur is more a stand your ground fighter, but he takes a step back to maintain and control range without being a runner. Let's see. 80F Velasquez said, I wouldn't be shocked if Teo's bursts of offense are just being instantly read and then shut down by Shakur early. That would be some Floyd Mayweather stuff. If he's able to do that to Teo, like he's already out of ideas inside 5-6 rounds and Shakur just cruises after. If Shakur can do that, first of all, if he beats Teo convincingly, but if he could do that, what you just described to Teo, then he becomes a top 5 pound for pound fighter in the sport. Because think about it, he's beating another kind of fringe top 10 pound for pound guy in Teofimo Lopez, who's had those belts at 135, who's been one of the. First of all, I think whoever wins this fight is a stamp Hall of Fame wise. If Teo beats Shakur, Hall of Famer, because now you've beaten Loma, took his belts, beat Josh Taylor, the former undisputed, took his one belt at the time because the belts had splintered by then. Taylor was only holding that WBO one, but then you went to 140. You took on the big bad wolf at 140. Josh Taylor beat him cleanly, convincingly, clearly, took his belt. And then you beat Shakur Stevenson, who is already a top 10 pound for pounder. Yeah, if Teo isn't already a Hall of Famer, that makes him a Hall of Famer in every way that Tank Davis is not. In every way that Tank is not. And if Shakur beats Teofimo Lopez, Shakur Stevenson's a Hall of Famer. You're then a 4-division belt holder, 4-division champion, and you're not a Adrian Broner or even Mikey Garcia. Less so Mikey Garcia. I respect his belts in those 4 divisions and his resume a bit more than Adrian Broner's, but they are both 4-division champs, which is crazy to think about. Less crazy again with Mikey Garcia. To me, I wish he fought Lomachenko. I was a big fan of Mikey Garcia in his prime. I was frustrated as a fan when he took that 2-year hiatus when Mikey Garcia did, and then he came back like a slightly more muscular guy. I remember when he was skinny Mikey Garcia at like 126, knocking people clean out. But Shakur Stevenson being a 4-division champion, okay, it would be, yes, you're a 4-division champion, but look at who you've beaten at that point. You gave Oscar Valdez his first loss. For what it's worth, you gave Joet Gonzalez his first loss. Not as meaningful, but okay, gave somebody their first loss. It's almost like Usyk giving Glovatsky, not Maris Briedis, who he also gave his first loss, not Michael Hunter, who he also gave his first loss, not Murat Gassiev, who he gave his first loss, not Anthony Joshua or Tyson Fury, who he gave his first and second loss. But you gave somebody their first loss. Joet Gonzalez, he's got a win over Oscar Valdez, which was significant at the time. Oscar Valdez was one of the best guys in the division and he was coming off of, or nearly coming off of, putting Miguel Burchelt's lights out. Remember that high point in Oscar Valdez's career? So yeah, Shakur beating him cleanly and also giving William Zepeda his first loss. That's significant. We'll see what William Zepeda does from here on out. You know what I want to see? I would want to see Andy Cruz versus William Zepeda to see if Cruz, who just lost that good fight against Murataya, to see if his style can keep that super high volume William Zepeda off him. I really wonder how that one would go, but I would love to see them go at it. But yeah, Shakur, if he beats Teofimo after all that I just described, he's a Hall of Famer. And he's a top 4, top 5 fighter in boxing. And if Teo beats Shakur, not only is he a Hall of Famer, but he's probably a top 6-ish guy, pound for pound in the sport. If not even, top 5, because Shakur on a lot of people's lists is kind of top 6, 7. I'll give you my pound for pound real quick and let me know if you have any comments, questions, or concerns about my top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I'll give you my top 15. And let me know if it has holes in it. But Usyk, 1, Inoue, 2, Bivol, 3, Bam Rodriguez, 4. I've got Devin Haney at 5. And I'll tell you why. We're supposed to forget that Ryan Garcia happened. That's what a no contest is supposed to do. It's what it's supposed to do. I know what we saw. We saw what we saw in that ring, but we also, everything around it, no contest. I've got Devin Haney at 5 because if you stricken that from the record and you only look at everything else Devin Haney's done, top 5. I've got Shakur number 6, Beterbiev number 7, Benavidez 8. I still have Canelo number 9. I do. I still have Canelo number 9. I would love to see him fight Christian Mbili or Hamza Shiraz or Diego Pacheco. I love to see him fight another very meaningful 168 guy. I've got Teofimo Lopez at number 10. So Benavidez 8, Canelo 9, Teofimo 10. I've got Tank at 11, Nakatani at 12, Opataya at 13. Less sure about these ones, by the way. Zordo Ramirez 14, Collazo number 15. Let's see. Karma Serene is in the house. Thank you for coming through. Happy Wednesday. Heck yeah. Yeah, my album's in the back. It's all Minnesota. We got Prince. We got Atmosphere. But yeah, this is Black Star, Mos Def, and Talib Kweli. But they're not from Minnesota. But we've been going through a lot of the boxing news, the announcements this week. I just gave my top 15, and I want to get to some of what you guys are saying on Teofimo versus Shakur as well. We've been talking about that one for the past 10 or so minutes, but I just can't wait because it's such a meaningful fight. You know, out of those 4 kings / really 4 princes, right? Teo hadn't fought any of them. He fought Vasily Lomachenko, who's just as important, if not more than many of them. And Shakur hadn't fought any of them, even though he's got a couple very meaningful wins. Again, William Zepeda, Oscar Valdez, but them fighting each other, and this being Shakur's debut at 140, you're going after Teo. This is a hugely important fight, because remember when they were all at 135, Ryan Garcia, Devin Haney, Tank Davis, Teofimo Lopez, when they were all at 135, Shakur was still at 126, beating Joet Gonzalez, and then Toka Khan Clary, and then going to 130, beating the brakes off Jamel Herring, beating Oscar Valdez and all that. And then he also has a win over Conceição, even though Shakur missed weight for that one. But he was a little bit smaller every step of the way than these other guys. So he's catching up and even surpassing weight-wise like Tank Davis. But now he's at 140 fighting Teofimo Lopez. This is just one of those fights that it's like, damn, yeah, like that's gotta happen. I felt that Tank Davis versus Teofimo, like that should have happened. You know what I mean? Like Teofimo versus Ryan Garcia should happen. You know, it's assuming Ryan Garcia could pick up a damn big win or two. I know he's got the win over Oscar Duarte, but like Ryan Garcia needs to win this fight against Mario Barrios, or else I don't know where he goes navigation wise from there. Let's see. I want to make sure I'm not skipping in the comments. ADF Velasquez said, I think Shakur versus Teo would be the least exciting fight of the night. Yeah, boxing match. I think, yeah, a shadow boxing match. You know, it could be a slightly uneventful fight. You know, depending on what happens with Adames versus Ammo Williams, that could start sliding one-sided. A one-sided boxing match where Adames pulls away a bit on the scorecard. I think Zayas versus Abbas Barao is going to be fire. Bakram versus Josh Kelly is going to be interesting. Again, I wish I bet on this one like a week ago. Las Vegas Leon, I think, told me that in this chat that the odds have narrowed, but I'm really looking at Josh Kelly to pull off the upset and become the IBF 154-pound title holder. And then at the top of the hour, we were talking about how the Mario Barrios versus Ryan Garcia fight card was filled out with Richardson Hitchens versus Oscar Duarte, Gary Antoine Russell versus Andy Hiraoka, which I'm glad they remade that fight, rescheduled it. And then Frank Martin versus Nahir Albright. And then Tyson Fury on April 11th, returning to the ring on Netflix to fight Arslanbek Makhmudov, the neck twitchy monster, the beast who lost to Caballel and Vito Guianello. But yeah, NMTK said, I do see pure boxing skills that Shakur Stevenson has to win for the decision, but it's going to mean taking risks. Again, I don't think he's going to run. I think that he's going to find a way to get comfortable in there and just end up flat out just winning more rounds than Teofimo Lopez. I think that's how that's going to go down. I think it's going to be close though, even on the scorecards. I keep wanting to say G Quan, but the W is before the K. GW Con YouTube. Teo needs the confidence to pump his jab alongside Shakur and try to punch with him. He has no shot without a busy out. Yeah, he's got to throw punches. if he doesn't just throw punches, then all he's reduced to is a puncher's chance, which, I mean, good luck. You're fighting Shakur. The odds of catching him with the perfect shot. So yeah, he's got to let his hands go. He's got to try to approximate what he did with Arnold Barboza. And I say Arnold Barboza because the Josh Taylor style is way different than Josh Taylor's style, coupled with Josh Taylor having mid 30-year-old legs and not being as athletic as Taylor was earlier in his career, in his prime. Josh Taylor's style did a lot of the work for Teo. I don't want to take credit away from Teo. He shined, but you're not going to get that from Shakur. So somebody who's kind of a range controller, Arnold Barboza, he's not Shakur either, but he's a good boxer. Like, I thought that Barboza versus Teo, or Teo versus Barboza, I thought that was going to be close and competitive. It really wasn't at the end of the day. Teo's going to have to his tricks are going to have to work against Shakur. He's got to double up with the same hand. He's got to do something funky to like change an angle, get Shakur to jab and then jab on top of the jab, or throw since Shakur is a southpaw with his lead hand. Because by the way, when Sandor Martin first dropped Teo, it was with a lead right hook, with Sandor Martin being a southpaw. Lead right hook. Look for Shakur catching Teo coming in with that lead right. But Shakur, it'll be interesting to see if he gets comfortable enough to start letting his left hand go. If he does, will Teo be comfortable enough to throw a right hand on top of that left? I don't know. I've got to see what their statures and their reaches look like in the ring. Because sometimes you could have guys who are nearly the same height, but because of one person being a more skillful range controller, distance manager, sometimes they could have the same reach on paper, but this other guy just seems to be able to get to the other guy at will almost, and the other guy seems like he's got to like jump and swim a moat to get to the other guy, when again, on paper, they appear to be the same height, similar reach. We see that sometimes. I mean, how easily was Canelo landing that jab? 5'8", 5'8.5" Canelo landing that jab against 6'3" Callum Smith. You know what I mean? So much of it has to do with feet and angles and range control. Like, it's a lot more than just height and reach. Unless you're getting guys with equal skill, then the height and reach matter a bit more. But yeah, I want to thank you guys for coming in. Karma Serene. Oh no, I'm sorry, I already got to that one. I thought that I saw your name twice, but it was actually GW Khan. YouTube says, what do you think of the Sugar Nunez Navarrete fight coming up? If Navarrete is still Navarrete, I say Navarrete. I thought Sugar Nunez struggled with Christopher Diaz. I kind of think that I wouldn't have been mad at a draw. I wouldn't have been mad at the result that was, which was Sugar Nunez winning. I wouldn't have been mad at Christopher Diaz finally getting over the hump, because he's fought a lot of good fighters. He's fought Shakur Stevenson and Navarrete, but I thought that Christopher Diaz arguably fought evenly with Sugar Nunez. So if Navarrete is still Navarrete, I think that he wins, but I think that Sugar Nunez has a hell of a puncher's chance. Sugar Nunez has a similar puncher's chance that I gave Oscar Valdez before their first fight. Like their first fight, I was super curious, like what's going to happen, because Valdez can blast you if you keep on playing around and jumping in on him. Like ask Miguel Burchell. But Navarrete ended up throwing like a historic amount of punches. Every time I feel like maybe Navarrete, his lifestyle's caught up to him. Maybe he can't throw as many punches as he did before. He then outdoes himself, and but I will say this about Navarrete. He had that weird fight where he got cut badly against who was the Filipino contender, and they were trying to remake the fight, but they ended up not remaking the fight. I'm mad that I don't have his name. Damn, let me know, who did Navarrete fight last? Who was the number one contender, fought him well, cut him, and then they didn't get the benefit of the doubt. They said that it was a headbutt that caused the cut. that stopped the fight instead of a punch. Charlie Suarez, he should have been champion after that fight. So there was that most recent fight for Navarrete. I know Navarrete shined against Oscar Valdez in that rematch, stopping Valdez. But then Navarrete fought to a draw with, or before that, fought to a draw with Robson Conceição. Navarrete lost when he went up again to 135 to Denis Berinchyk. So Navarrete, if you look at his last few fights, it hasn't been wins top to bottom. It's been draw, loss. Like, there's been a lot going on the Navarrete side. And then that weird fight against Charlie Suarez. So I'm thinking, I'm wondering, is he kind of past it athletically, volume-wise, cardio-wise? Like, Navarrete's kind of a freak of nature, especially when he was in the lower divisions, because he's got a Errol Spence-like reach, but he was at 122, 126, beating the brakes off of Isaac Dogboe several years ago. He looked like an absolute nightmare. So he's been at 130 for a long time. Sugar Nunez can crack. I want to go Navarrete with Sugar Nunez having a puncher's chance. It's just that you can't replicate what Navarrete does once he starts rolling. So I think I'm going to still lean Navarrete. But a part of me just wondered, is it not a matter of if, but when Navarrete gets absolutely flattened, given his vaquero, his cowboy style in the ring? I feel like it's almost a matter of time. I used to think that Timothy Bradley, given his aggressive style in certain fights, that it was only a matter of time before he got his lights put out. Never happened. I mean, he got blasted by Provodnikov and got dropped multiple times against Manny, but he never really got flattened. He got hurt badly against Jesse Vargas towards the end of the fight, but he never got his lights put out. I kind of feel like it's got to happen with Navarrete at some point, right? Will it be against Sugar Nunez? I don't know. I know that, it almost happened against Liam Wilson. I thought, when the way that Liam Wilson dropped Navarrete, you saw Navarrete get up and he was super wobbly. He almost got stopped. And then he ended up stopping Liam Wilson. So I don't know. Navarrete is such a unique case, but I'll lean towards him in this upcoming fight against Sugar Nunez. Stan Tucker, what's up, Dad? I'm happy to see Fury coming back. We still need to see him against Joshua. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if Joshua comes back and when. Benjamin Tucker, Benji, can we hear your top 15 again? Usyk, Bivol, Bam. I'm sorry, Usyk, Inoue 2, Bivol 3, Bam 4, Haney 5, Shakur 6, Beterbiev 7, Benavidez 8, Canelo 9, Teofimo 10, Tank 11, Nakatani 12, Opataya 13, Zurdo 14, and I'm less sure about that one. I want to just put that out there. I'm less sure about that one. But I feel bad about having not Opataya there and not Zurdo there. And then Oscar and then Collazo, number 15. He's like a minimum weight. He's like in the really, really small weight classes, but he's like killing it there. And let me know if there are any gaps or if there's any one of those top 15 where you're like, what the hell? Hell no. Let me know. And let me know if I forgot somebody, because that's a possibility too. Let's see. Yeah, I want to thank you guys for coming in. Again, huge fight weekend. If you came in a little bit late, feel free to take it from the top. We talked a lot of boxing over the past hour and some change. I also put out so far 4 previews for this past fight, as well as the post-fight for Murataya versus Andy Cruz. So I did the post-fight for Murataya versus Cruz, and then so far I've done previews and predictions on Teofimo versus Shakur, Keyshawn Davis versus Jermaine Ortiz, Xander Zayas versus Abbas Barao, and Bakram Murtazaliev versus Josh Kelly. I would like to get to, we discussed these fights in this video. I would like to get to Carlos Adames versus Austin Amma Williams and Shushu Carrington against Carlos Castro. I just don't know if I'll be able to get to those two, but I talked about those fights in this live as well. So if you want to know my thoughts on those fights, feel free to rewind a bit on the live. I covered both of those ones and told you kind of where I was going on that one. But yeah, I want to thank you guys for coming through. Las Vegas Leon, Benjamin Tucker, aka Benji. What's up, cuz? Stan Tucker, what's up, Dad? NMTK, thank you again. GW Con YouTube, thank you. Karma Serene, thank you. ADF Velasquez, thank you. I love you 281000, thank you. Rob 6387, thank you. Ventru, yeah, we were chatting in the comments a little bit earlier this week. Ventru 1999, thank you for coming through. Yeah, I want to thank you guys once again. I always have fun on these live chats. Like, I always like doing the predictions, but I have a lot more fun in these live chats, you know, just to kind of hear your thoughts in real time and read a lot of your opinions and kind of react to some of what you're saying. Yeah, Big Baby Miller's Wiggly Womp, thank you for coming through. Yeah, Big Baby Miller's on the card as well. He's like the 5th fight down on the Teo versus Shakur card. But yeah, shoot, enjoy this fight weekend. It is so stacked. And again, to see Zayas versus Abbas Barao on Top Rank, you could go to the website, toprank.com/ I think it's Top Rank Classics, or you could go to like Roku TV, Tubi. Yeah, that's where Top Rank is right now. It's not pretty. But that's what it is. That's how you would see the title unification fight at 154 between Zayas and Barao. And then Bachram versus Josh Kelly is 154, IBF 154 pound title shot. That's going to be on DAZN. It's going to be fought in Josh Kelly's backyard in Newcastle, England. So that's going to be on DAZN mid-afternoon if you're on the West Coast. Yeah, perfect fight to start the new year. Huge, important fight. Benjamin Tucker, Benji said, no 154 pounders in top 15. No, I'll tell you why though. It's because there's too much unfinished business. If there was one, it would be Sebastian Fundora. It would be. Followed by, right now, I would say Virgil, number 2 in the division. But, you know, Fundora had 2 belts at a point. Then he had 1. He's beaten Tim Tszyu. He's beaten like Carlos Ocampo. He stopped Erickson Lubin. He's got good wins. He does. But again, like, how can you be top 15 in a division? And I know it's a little bit hypocritical because I had Devin Haney, Shakur, Teo, and they're in divisions with other undefeated fighters and other really, really good fighters that they haven't fought. But the mix at 154, like, if Sebastian Fundora beats, I don't know, wait, he's about to fight Keith Thurman. Yeah, that elevates you. Virgil, if he beats Boots, or if they fight, whoever wins that fight, top 10 pound for pound. That's what I'm saying. Like, unfinished business, fight the fights that matter, so I know where the hell to place you on this pecking order. NMTK said only hardcore boxing fans are here in the stream. Yeah, that's what's up. I know I got nothing but fight fans in the house right now. Heck yeah. Yeah, Benji. Yeah, Fundora. A case could be made. I would say Fundora above Zordo. How about that? So top 15, I would say top 13, top 12, but top 10, nah. I can't do Fundora top 10 just yet. I think he's a nightmare for anybody. I just need to see it against Boots, Xander Zayas, Bachram Murtazaliev. We saw it against Tim Tszyu, especially in that rematch. Virgil Ortiz, we got to see it. Madrimov, you know? Yeah, thank you, NMTK. Thank you, everybody, for coming through. Hope you guys enjoy the fight weekend. I'm Woog. Thanks for tuning in.